Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of the Boom Podcast. Kind of hard to believe, but I've been on LinkedIn for quite a while. There's lots of people I interact with, have talked to personally, and I've always been curious to talk even further. And I want to do that so you, the business owner or solo professional, can get some more tips, tricks, and strategy on how to navigate your hectic, busy business through whatever storm you're going through. Today's going to be a little bit different. Lately, I've been bringing on marketing folks, podcast folks, people who are from TikTok, all that crazy stuff. This one I'm excited about. It's about mindset. And I brought on Jacob. Jacob, I followed him probably for maybe 4 months now. And every single one of his posts make me, the solo professional, stop and think about what I'm doing. And I thought, wow, this is a really effective way to challenge how busy do you have to be to either A, be content with your life and run a successful business. And that's a balance we all struggle with. So, Jacob, could you introduce yourself to us? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it. It's been great to actually get to know who you are and what you're about. So I guess a little bit about me is I'm originally from Maine and I'm no longer there. And so this whole last couple of years, dealing with pandemic and stuff like that, I think has caused us to actually stop and think about, what do I want in life? And it's actually helped me, I think, become a better coach. Part of that, I think, comes from the fact of saying we had so many people telling us what to do, had so many, this is what we need to get done. You can't do this, you can't do this. And I think we just kind of said, I can either curl up in a little ball and sit in the corner and wait for somebody to give me permission to move, or, we can head out as a family. And so we sold our home and we actually just finished up a year of traveling around the country, which was pretty amazing. A little stressful at the beginning, but overall, we saw some incredible things that we probably wouldn't have had we not just taken a step out and went forward.
How big is your family, the one that's going on the road with you?
So we have 3 kids, 15, 13, 9, and we also have a little dog too. So she's about 25 pounds. So we're all sitting here in 300 square feet of space. And so, we learned that we can live in.
No way!
Yeah.
Your partner, a dog, and a 300 square foot moving home. Let me ask you something probably obvious. I'm going to ask you, why?
Honestly, I mean, it came out where we had the opportunity. And, you think about those age groups, it's not like chasing around kids and wiping butts. It's really about, you only have for me, my daughter's 3 years left before we kind of say, hey, see ya, or somewhere around that. And so we really wanted to take advantage of the time and saying, it's important for us just to be together and take advantage of that, I guess, space in life that, we really, at the end of it, we didn't know what we were getting into, but it was phenomenal because I think we kind of all grew as a result.
Did you guys have a family meeting? I mean, whose idea was this to do that? And how did you get everybody on board with this idea?
Well, actually, that was the easiest piece. Was I talked to my wife. I was like, hey, what do you think about traveling across the country? Because we had already homeschooled our kids the year before. So we were already kind of more remote than most families. And so when my job became all remote, that opportunity came out. And so she was like, I've been thinking about this. And then we presented to the kids and they were just all on board. So it really wasn't that difficult. It was just confirming. I think the bigger piece that came along was, hey kids, here's a duffel bag. That's all you can take with you.
Wow. Because I know with absolute certainty that if I told my kids, hey guys, we're going to hit the road for a year. If they're watching this, they're probably going to groan. But they'll be like, what about my games, Dad? I have to play my games. And it's going to be tough for them to separate from gaming and hit the road and just be in the moment with your family. And that says a lot about our society as a whole and what we prioritize as what we need to be happy. Am I right?
Yeah, no, it absolutely, you kind of, you put your money where your mouth is at this point, right? It's like you can talk about it, you can dream about it, but actually getting through it and then walking through, and it's not to say that everything was like simple and easy, but it was like we're determined, we're committed to do this. How do we do it? Versus, well, should we or shouldn't we?
Interesting. So let's back up a minute. Let's back up a little bit so we can give some context to the audience about who you are. Did you ever work a regular 9 to 5 job? I think you've had many, but just tell me a little bit about your career path, so to speak, to where we are today as a coach for entrepreneurs, basically.
Yeah, so I worked, when I first started working as a kid and I guess into adulthood was, I always worked for somebody else. I mean, we came from a family that was, dad worked, mom was a school teacher. Like that's what it was. Was always working for somebody else. And so I actually jumped into my own business. I started a painting service and ran that for 12 and a half years. And I learned a lot, right? And I think I learned a lot of like, you can make a lot and keep a little. And so kind of the
I think that's something we all understand.
well, it is. It's like how much, it's like how much is your time worth? That's a big question for me. And I think it comes out of saying, it's like, I could spend, 60 hours a week, busting. It's like, but then I'm going to lose my family. Like, I'm not going to be around them. I'm not going to be able to, it's like, what's the point of having a family if you're not going to be with them? So a lot of the philosophy that I think is coming out of more of a blue collar practical approach is saying like, there's all these theories, there's all these pieces of information, but at the end of the day, you got to live with it. And are you going to be happy living with it? And so, running
you
out.
had your own painting crew. You ran a crew.
Yeah, so I did it multiple ways. I had crew. I ended up just doing it on my own, and I could make a lot more and be more efficient, and I could control my hours. I think when I first started, it was like, I don't know, you kind of like ran it like 40 hours a week, and it just seemed like you'd never make enough money. And by the end of it, I could get done what I needed to get done in probably 5 or 6 hours. And you learn to be efficient, and you learn what you don't need to do versus like, what can I do?
Okay, all right. So you're getting the end of your painting career. What was the catalyst that made you want to become a coach?
Well, the big catalyst is when I hated what I was doing. I mean, I think 2,500 rooms that I painted in my career. So it's just like, how many dips of a brush can you make? And what I think kind of going back.
How many paint brushes can you stroke on a wall? I mean, I'm not diminishing any painters out there or any people who work with their hands, but when you say it like that, how many decks can you build? How many roofs can you staple? And you add it up over the lifetime of a career. That's a lot of shingle. That's a lot of plank. That's a lot of brush stroke. So from a blue collar perspective, you pay with sweat equity, literally, with your hands, your back, your legs, your knees, your ankle. I'm coming from a family who's very blue collar, so I get it. You see that, they're 60, 70 years old. They can barely sit down, and they're groaning when they're sitting down. And so I guess at the end of your 12-year career, you were feeling the burnout, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. And I think, on top of that, it's like, hey, what else is there in life? It's like, I wouldn't say success, but it's like that there wasn't much more I was going to grow in and on this. It's like I had come to a plateau in my career or even in my life, and it's like without changing something, without doing something different. And I think that question for me was, well, what am I here for, and what am I supposed to be doing with my life, up on top of just making money or making, and that kind of led me into just a bunch of different directions. And so before I quit painting, I got certified as a coach and went through a whole journey to get there. But I think understanding that people have more significance than just the job they're doing is huge, right? And that purpose and understanding, what you're built for is a lot of.
But what specifically made you go? Then put it this way: when I was a teacher, I was like, okay, this is about poverty. You know, I can't keep doing that. I need more money. I also don't want to be stuck in a classroom or die. What am I good at? Oh, I can write. How can I do that? So that was my thought process. What was your thought process from manual labor to talking, basically?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think what happened was as I got to know my clients, I just learned to listen. And it was something that came naturally. As a kind of an introverted person, it's easy for me to listen. And what I noticed is a lot of people didn't necessarily need my advice.
Painting clients.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had painting clients that I remember the longest one, and I put a post on there a long time ago, but it was like, I sat with him for 7 hours. And after 7 hours, I was like, crap, I need to get something done today. Right. So like I hurried and did an hour's worth of work. But I mean, it's the client, they understand that you're there, but it's like people have a lot of information. And kind of to your point, you know, you're talking about society like values certain things, and slowing down and actually talking through and thinking through things is not one of them. And I think that kind of was a bug for me to be able to say like, man, there's something about this that I find value in, and just hearing people's stories and saying like, do you see this?
Nice, nice. So now you jumped into coaching, you get your certification. What was the biggest adjustment for you to make between physically doing your work and listening and feeling like you've accomplished a day's worth of work? Because for me, that's a hobby. Like when you mow your lawn, you can feel good about it. You can sit back and say, hey, I did that. But after 2,500 rows, you probably don't get the same satisfaction. But still, even for me, teaching there was sweat equity to it. Well, copywriting was what I first did. You can't really see the result of your labor, so to speak. And it wasn't 7 hours long. It was one little project at a time. And for me, it was hard feeling comfortable doing that. Did you have that problem?
Oh, I think you cut out for a sec. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. What I was trying to say was, did you have a hard time adjusting physical labor lifestyle to coaching, which is sitting and listening type of lifestyle?
It wasn't so much as like not being able to see it. It was attaching my value to people's results was probably the biggest piece, right? You know, as a coach, you're sitting there like, oh, somebody has to walk away with this big aha moment or this big insight. And it's like, often that's not what happens. And so I had to live with the insecurity of saying like, well, we'll see how that goes. You know, they show up next week, then you did something right. If they didn't, then, you know, you need to do a little bit more training and stuff. So I think just battling my own demons was probably a bigger piece of that versus having to see some results.
Okay, let's unpack that. What did you do to battle these demons? Did you end up just talking to yourself a lot? Because the reason why I'm asking you, obviously, is to make the audience relate to this better, but also because all business owners go through that at some point where they have demons that they're trying to get through. So it's interesting to hear from you from a blue collar perspective. How did you battle these demons?
Well, the crux of it is it's not about you. You know, I think we ask the wrong questions. We look in the wrong spots to determine and try to find something that actually already exists. And when you start to sit there and say, you know what, whether I feel great or I feel weird or I don't know where I'm going, it doesn't matter if my job is to listen to somebody else and help them get where they're going. How I feel actually doesn't affect what they're doing. But personally, to kind of get to that spot was honestly just a lot of, it's like personal death is the way, you know, one of the best quotes I've ever heard is life is about 1,000 deaths. And it's just that constant thing. We have this expectation, we have these, what we hear other people tell us we should be doing. And we have to die to that and just saying like, hey, this is what I know that's true. How do I use that in order to get where I need to go?
That's goosebump worth it. We have to die 1,000 deaths, almost more specifically your ego. has to die 1,000 deaths in order to reconcile your current reality and thrive, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yep.
Because your ego's fighting again, oh, why am I doing that? I have no idea what I'm doing. Does this look stupid? I feel stupid. This is ridiculous. Should I be working harder should I justify it by working harder? And it's a mind trip, quite literally. And I think a lot of people in all walks of life struggle with that inner voice, right?
Yeah, the way I think about it is like getting onto a rotary, right? You want to get somewhere, and so you start going into this cycle, and then all of a sudden you just realize you're just spinning your wheels on that cycle, and you eventually have to get off anyway. I don't care if you feel good or you feel bad about the situation. If you want X to happen, you have to do the steps in order to do that. So sometimes you're feeling really like they matter, and figuring it out. Like I think we all want to solve that puzzle, but at the end of the day, let me ask you, it's like, would that matter to you? Do you still have to move forward in the way that you want, even if you don't have it figured out? And the answer is yes.
Yes. So just for the audience awareness, if you know me, you don't know me, I have a private invite-only Slack channel. I told Jacob about it today to check it out because I was going to ask. But on the Slack channel, I admitted to my so-called community that, right now I'm going through what entrepreneurs call the valley of despair. And I posted that all entrepreneurs and business owners go through that. You start up on a high. Typically, you have a bright idea, you have a plan, and you feel good. You put it together, you made your landing page, you did your homework, and then you send it out to the market. And you don't get the feedback you want. And you find yourself working even harder to get back the feeling you had when you first had your big idea. So you start digging deeper. You start digging your own hole, so to speak, to fight the panic off. And you enter what I didn't term the phrase, I heard it somewhat, the valley of despair. And in the valley of despair, there's a lot of self-doubt. There's a lot of what the heck am I doing? Am I even meant for that? Am I a fool? Are people going to find out about me? So on and so forth. And I told people in this private group that, lean into it. It's trying to tell you something. You're either doing too much or you're not doing enough. You either have the wrong people around you, or you need to hire more people, whatever it is. You need to change something about it rather than plowing through it and hoping you get on the other side. And typically people make it through the valley of despair, climb back up because they changed something about their approach. And they get the feedback that they want, and they start feeling euphoric again until they reach a baseline, a new baseline, which is higher than the previous baseline. So you celebrate. Whoa, I made $20,000 months. Whoa, guess what happened 3 months later? $20,000. No, I need $30,000 a month. And in my mind, when I think the video, when did it ever end? Because if I get comfortable making 30 grand a month, what's next? And people are going to be like, well, you should be happy with 30 grand a month. True, but your brain is not. Your brain is no longer under threat. You've accomplished the goal. The positive energy is over. So now you're seeking for the next challenge, so to speak. So I've said a lot. Let's try to unpack this a little bit with your mindset. What is this whole cycle? Why did it exist? And what do you hope? People like me, if I were to say, hey, Jacob, I'm in the valley of despair right now. Dude, I'm sick of doing that. I've been through it 3 times. I can't just keep having an idea, lost, panic. So help me unpack it. Let's have a conversation around that, because I guarantee you 1,000 other people are going through that at this very moment.
Yeah, and this actually, and if you don't know this about me, I come from a space of negativity. I am not a positive person at all. I always come from, like, I think that,
No, you just
no,
call it positivity. Just
it's like, and so out of that, like, life is always showing you something, right? And I think to your point, uh, I think sometimes we interpret wrong. And this is usually where I start with people, is saying, it's like, usually when we're in that valley of despair, what we think is something's wrong, right? That's what's creating that tension. We would say, oh, there's something wrong, now you need to go fix that. And to me, it's more like your gauge on your gas, like for your car, for gas, right? It's like an indicator showing you that something's amiss, but it's not actually saying anything's wrong. To me, that's a huge distinction, because I think we start to judge ourselves, all these other different pieces. I don't spend a lot of time on that. That's kind of like rear view mirror thinking. I'm like, okay, great. If you did something wrong, where do you want to go next, right? How do we fix this? What do you want to do? So what typically that indicator tells us is how we see the world, but more importantly, that something's missing. And I model it in this, probably the worst example. If I told you to go get a gallon of milk, you'd be like, hey, I'm getting my car, I'm going to the store, I know exactly how to do it, right? You would not hesitate. If I asked you how to milk a cow, even if you knew how to do it, you'd pause.
Yeah.
And you have to figure, right? And that's, to me, the valley of despair. And the summary of this is, it just shows you don't know where you're going, which is fine, right? Like it's okay. But what we do, to your point, was, hey, let's work harder, let's do this. And it's like, you don't even know what you're doing. So like, stop for a second, figure out what the question is that you need to ask, right? To me, that's where I start.
That's such a great analogy. You know, I think business owners, they're driving in the car and they have a goal. I want to go to Omaha, Nebraska, okay? And they have indicators that, you know, they may have a rough map, but they have a tool that's going to get them to Omaha, Nebraska. Now, let's say the tool stops working. And one of those 1980s cars without those electronic indicators, right? The panic to pull over and just rip out the engine and put it back together and not go get help is quite real. I feel like a lot of people, I don't know what it is about entrepreneurs and business owners, we'd rather rip out the engine and put it back together than say, you know what? I'm the wrong person to analyze this situation. Why don't I go find somebody who's an expert at engine and tell me what's wrong and fix it so I can get back on the road? The Omaha, is that unique to entrepreneurs, or do you think a lot of people experience it? I feel like it's unique to entrepreneurs because they are on a journey of self-improvement. Their business is a reflection of how they view themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of what entrepreneurs are unknown, right? The journey that they're taking is unknown. It's all new. And so it's not even just like driving your own car, it's driving somebody else's car or driving to places you've never been to, right? Because everybody else, like, you grew up and it's like habitually, you know how to do school because somebody told you. You know how to do college because somebody told you. Like, there's a lot of frameworks around our lives. And when you become an entrepreneur, there's nothing. There's no set. I don't care if you watch, 1,000 Gary Vaynerchuk videos, it's not going to be your journey. And the sooner you realize that, just become acceptable of saying like, oh, it's all going to be new,
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a great example about Gary Vee. Most marketers, if we're going to talk about Gary Vee, start with Gary Vee and try to do what he does. Which is, to your point, that's Gary Vee's vehicle. And we're trying to drive his vehicle to get what we think will get us the most results. I've been on that path. That's why when I talk about Gary Vee, if anybody ever asks me for my opinion about him, I don't like him. Okay? I don't like him, not as a person, but I don't like the false positivity he gives out. Like, this is going to be easy. All you need to do is turn the camera on and send it out to 67 pieces of content. That's wrong, people. But I've been stuck in that trap too. Like, if Gary Vee could just turn on his camera, it works for him. Why is it not working for me? And to your point, if you're going to be a small business owner, even though other businesses are out there, that doesn't mean your business is going to use that card, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
It's scary. It's really scary. And when somebody hops on a call with you, about how scared they feel or how stuck they are or how unhappy they are, panicking. And at the same see, entrepreneurs also have a life. They want to be with their families, but they can't because the business is calling. Are some of the first questions you ask them when they hop on a call with you?
What's on your mind is my biggest question, right? And I have
Because
to
you're a
ask,
listening coach.
I am, because I don't have a set plan. A lot of times it's like, I haven't met these people for more than 5 to 10 minutes. And it's ridiculous if I'm going to go to a 40-year-old person and say, hey, I've known you for 10 minutes. Let me tell you what you need to do in your life. But that's a lot of coaches, right? Hey, here's the way that you do all of this. This is the set plan. It's like, I don't know what that plan is, but I can tell you that when somebody tells you what the problem is, there's a cause for it, right? And so a lot of the listening or even the coaching just comes from like, to me, everybody has an answer. They just get lost because there's either too much going on or they just can't see it yet because they keep seeing the same thing. Like they see one image and they can't see the other facets of that same image.
Interesting. So the answer comes through talking more and asking more questions, right? You're kind of guiding them with your question.
Yeah. I mean, you know the answer. The answer is like, whatever it is that's bothering you, there's a solution to. And if you can clarify what that solution is, then you're just walking back and saying, okay, what's keeping you from that? It's like, there's only so many answers to the puzzle, but it's complicated, but just having a agile framework to be able to say, these are the points that we probably need to consider, but I'll let you talk about them in the order that you want to talk about them, because that's what's relevant to the person, right? So for me, it's like, I want to get out of the way and let that stream of consciousness run through. And I'll pick up on some things that I'll ask later and say like, well, what do you think about that? Why did you say that? Why was that important to you? Right? Because there's nobody like talking about stuff that's not important to them. So if you get people talking, they'll eventually just get to what's important.
That's fascinating. The answer to the problem lies in the problem itself, right? The
Yes.
solution is in the problem.
Yep. It's I don't want to give away all my secrets here, but it's like, it's really not that easy. But I also think you can't do it yourself. I can't, like, I am a complete mess. When I went through your video this morning, I'm like, oh, that's me. Like, I'm not excited about life right now. There's a lot going on and it's complicated. And I can't fix myself. And my poor wife is sitting there going like, geez, would you just, get out of this? It's 8 o'clock, time to get up.
Do you believe that most people, if they can confront with the right question, they can get clarity on, they can move away the non-essential and be left with choices, right?
Yeah.
And you told me this on a private call. I think a while back, we talked privately, and you said, as long as I can get you to see with absolute clarity your choice, the rest is up to you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're the guy who makes people reveal their true choices.
Yes.
Because there's too much chaos in their life. There's too much emotions and feedback, distractions, and internal chatter. But in the stillness, with the right questions, we can reveal paths. And as long as you know what the paths are, and as long as you know what you want, then you will know what option A gets you what you want, or what option B. Well, B won't do it. A will do it. Now, here's the next problem. Some people won't even pick A. Right? Is it because of fear?
It's not to be insulting, it's laziness, right? So when stress comes about, when problems come about, we revert to what's easy, what we know, what we feel comfortable with. And
yeah, it's better the devil you're not.
Right. That's exactly it is. And people will double down on that too, right? They'll do more of the easy thing versus thinking about something differently or trying a different approach or something that's even more unknown than what they're at.
Interesting. The human brain, you're right. you really take a moment to think about what's the purpose of your brain. Well, the purpose of your brain is to protect itself so it can survive. And you put it in an uncomfortable position, it's going to look for the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Much to its own detriment, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of this is really just trying to make the complicated simple. And not easy, but simple, right? So taking basically like how to milk a cow and making it how to go grab milk from the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me, hey, go to the grocery store, grab me a milk, sure, no problem, simple. Hey, go milk me a cow, I'm thirsty, huh? But there are people, metaphorically speaking, will go milk the cow when you could really just go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And somehow, especially entrepreneurs, they think milking the cow is a badge of honor.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's definitely a model they think they should be following versus just trying to find the way.
Let me ask you something. Let's take a slight shift here. Which type of coaching, for the kind of work you do you disagree with the most?
I think the focus on adding more to your life is probably the worst part of.
So sort of like a David Goggins mindset.
Yeah, I mean, anything working harder, sacrificing, suffering more, like all of like you're gonna suffer enough. Don't add to that. I mean, that's.
Let me ask you something. Have you read David Goggins' book?
No,
okay. Are you aware of him?
Yeah, I know who he is, and I've seen some videos and stuff like that. And
okay, the premise, just for the audience who might be similar to you, David Goggins is a retired Navy SEAL, ultra-marathoner, / public speaker / writer, okay? And his premise, which I want to talk about this in a second, appealed to a wide mass. And basically, number one, everything's your fault. I think you and I can agree on that. But what you want is on the other side of suffering. Who you want to be is on the other side of suffering. So basically, if you do a hard thing, you'll get closer to what you really want and who you really are. And a part of me is like, okay, that makes sense. And the other part of me, that doesn't make any sense at all. But he appealed to just a wide variety of people, most especially entrepreneurs, and who subscribe to more, harder. And then I'll be able to be at peace with myself. I'm guessing you disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of to where you brought this up at the beginning, it's like you succeed here and then you just keep kicking the line. The goalpost just keeps moving and moving and moving. And eventually you just burn yourself out, right? And I do think there are probably a percentage of people that's actually probably right for. But to me, even in life, the more guilty you make people feel, including yourself, like that's not sustainable. I'll be interested to see that guy, at age 60, at age 70, and to see if he continues the same mindset. It feels like it's going to be something that breaks, but that's not my life either.
So if you're the opposite of David Goggins, less is more. How is less more? I'm not challenging you. I'm just having people pick two options. You could pick a David Goggins type of coat, or you could pick your type of juice. Ultimately, your end goal is that they get closer to what they want to do.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to get it now, right? So this is, for me, David Goggins is like, hey, suffer now so you can have what you want later. Even though he's not saving, it's very similar to like Dave Ramsey, right? It's like, it's that same mindset of like, suffer now. And I'm kind of like, I may not get there. And so I don't want to sit there and like lose my life today, but I also know that I do need to plan for the future. I'm not like the total, like, don't do anything with the future, don't do anything with the past, but I'm much more in saying today is what matters. And if you make 1,000 great choices in a row, then you'll have 1,000 great things in your pocket, right? It's not that complicated. If you want to change direction, you invest a little bit into the directions, but like, I want to know my kids. I don't want to look back and go like,
That's
oh,
your value. That's
one of them.
Value that you
Yeah,
prioritize.
I prioritize, and for me, I have 6, and anything less, I start to make those priorities too thin. And to me, that's like, I would rather go deep in one thing than I would do a billion things that I'm doing just very, very small, like, pieces to. It's like, I don't know, but I think a lot of people are just like, more I can do. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but that's just, I'd never coach somebody to that end. I would always say, I think you can get more out of less. So
with the more or less strategy, can you talk about one of the clients you've had in the past that fit what we're talking about, had an epiphany that more is actually better for them? I think the audience needs to hear how somebody takes that mentality, come to a epiphany, and decides to make an adjustment to their life.
Yeah, so actually interesting, this week I had a final call with somebody, and the major tension for their lives is like, I have all these opportunities right now, and then I have the life that I want. And the life that we want is like the freedom to make choices, the simplicity of life, all of those things, like that's like even the goal of retirement is to get there. But it's almost like they can't lose. It's like, well, I'd have to sell this property that I have because that one's taking my time up, and I'm complaining about like how much time it takes for me, and what it's like. Okay, that's fine. You can do that, or you can get rid of it, right? But that's an opportunity cost. And then there's others like, well, we have this opportunity. It's like there's so much time dedicated to different spaces. It's like, well, no wonder you're oversaturated with, I've got to do all these things, right? When you kind of look at the practicalness of, and this kind of, I think, comes back to just where I've come from, is like, if you tell me your schedule and I can't even figure out how you can fit it into 168 hours a week, that to me is the only problem, because every single one of these priorities is not just, well, it might take me 3 hours. It's like, I still think about it. For me, I think about something 30 times before I can make one decision. So now if I've got like 10 priorities and I've got to think about everything 30 times, it's like, it's not just the time to do it. It's the mental energy. It's all those different pieces. And that's why for me, less is more, because it's like, I can do a really good job with a few things versus, and maybe I'm.
How many priorities should people have? I'm just curious. If 10 is too much, what is the right number, so to speak?
Personally, I can't do more than 8. 6 is comfortable for me.
8 seems like a lot,
It is.
I'm assuming your priorities are health, your personal health, family, experience. That's why you're doing the whole Ivy thing, learning, marriage.
Yep.
After that, that's 5 so far. I'm starting to feel the weight of it.
Yeah, and then kids, hobbies, travel. I mean, you think about, people have all these different priorities, and it's like they don't understand that everything costs time.
Yeah, I just felt the weight of it, and I just realized that's why I brought you on the show for selfish purposes. So, but it was like, okay, a lot of my heaviness is actually because I have too many priorities, and not just business, but I have too many ideas. I have too many wants. I have too many shoulda, coulda. Maybe I just need to focus on 4 things that are absolutely essential to me, and forget about the others for now, and start getting back to a place of, oh, this doesn't feel so overwhelming anymore. Because a lot of times your business overcomes everything else because there's so many priorities within the business.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to create a lifestyle business. I don't think not just anybody can do it. For you, I consider what you do sort of a lifestyle business. Your work facilitates your lifestyle. I forget one of the two. Basically, I don't have a lifestyle business. Just put it this way: I'm in this chair 7, 8 hours a day. You're not. So that's a lifestyle business. This is a business, right? And somebody wants more of a lifestyle business. What do they need to do?
To me, it's definition, right? If you can actually define what you want your life to be, and then it's not about getting there tomorrow. It's about, well, what can you do? You know, I had a client of mine and he talked about, it's like, well, ideally my morning would be this. And it's 4 hours of this, and this, right? It's reading here, it's going for a walk, it's doing like, okay, that was that. And they're like, but I can't do that now.
Same.
Okay, perfect.
Same.
So what I tell them, I said, well, what can you do in half an hour? Oh, well, half an hour. Yeah, no, I can do a half an hour. Like that's like now all of a sudden it's like I'm getting a little piece of what I want to get done. I'm making a step towards that. And I'm like, okay, great. So now we do in half an hour. And if you can take something else off your plate, then you can increase what you want to do, right? But defining it, knowing where you want to go to first, to me is the biggest, like you can, and that's not easy because nobody's like, there's no manual for Doug, right? There's no like, hey, this is what Doug wants. And part of it is suffering. It's like there was a cost for us to sell our home, to leave family and friends. Like there's a cost to that. It's not like it's all like unicorns and rainbows, right?
I'm glad you said that because you see a lot of lifestyle people. We see them on LinkedIn. I don't want to name their name, not important. But they talk about the glory of life in the RV, glory of laptop on the beach, you know, that kind of thing. But you know that there's a cost to lifestyle on the road. Yeah, you are getting closer to what you want to do and be, but it doesn't come without a sacrifice.
Yeah, and that's a phenomenal point because I think sometimes we look at this like grass is greener on the other side. Like, hey, if I get out of this, then my life's going to be really great, and there's no cost to that. But it's like, no, there's going to be I don't care what you are in life, there's a cost to the decisions because there's a limitation, and you have to say no way more times. And this is where it comes back to the 1,000 deaths. Is like you just have to learn how to say no. It's like I'd love to be doing, you know, traveling to here, traveling there, but it's like I have a family. I'm not doing that right now. Would that be amazing? Sure. But would I have a pretty crappy relationship with my family? Yeah. Would that create problems?
Yeah. So tell me, when you made the decision to go on the road without getting too personal, leave that private stuff, but some of the not superficial, but lighthearted stuff, did you know that you were not going to have any privacy on the road?
Yeah, yeah. So a little cheat. I actually watched my family for probably 2 or 3 months, and I noticed like where they occupied space. And so we had a pretty good sized ranch or whatever, but they always seemed to stay in the kitchen and the living room. That was kind of one big room. And it's like that's about 300 square feet. We can do this, right? So I would say I kind of cheated out on that a little bit, where I kind of knew beforehand that it would be all right.
Okay, so yeah, cause I think I'm an introvert. For those of you who don't believe me, ask my wife. We just had a conversation before this call, and she goes, I guess there's nothing to talk about. And there is, I have lots to talk about. I'm just deeply introverted. I don't really blab all that much. I blab on podcasts and client calls because that's the business. But privately, I think I would struggle in an RV where I have to be around people, even though I love 24 hours a day. I think I would go a little nuts. But I know you are an extreme introvert. I'm just curious how you navigated that.
Maybe I don't know. Honestly, when I think about it, it's like
you just did it.
I think for me the introversion is like as long as I don't have to interact, like I wouldn't say safe,
okay.
But I'm okay. Like as long as you're not demanding or asking something of me, I'm fine, right? But it's like if kids were constantly coming saying like, hey, it's like I'm like no, because I can be quiet anywhere, right? I can be in doctor's office and I'll never say hi to anybody. Like I'm fine.
No, but I think my family are all extroverts. I mean, my wife, my kid, my 2 kids.
Yeah.
So when I'm in a room with them, I'm not talking. They assume I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite content. You watch your TV, you read your book. I'm just going to be here. But when they start talking and demanding things of me, then I start getting a little irritated. And that comes
Right.
off like I don't love them or anything like that, which couldn't
Right.
be further from the truth. It's just that my energy just feels like it's getting robbed if
Yeah.
you demand it.
Yep. Yep. No, that's
Look,
exactly right.
after this call, I knowing myself, I'm going to take a break and get over it. So it's just so the sacrifice of an extreme introvert going on the road with your family. I guess your family just had a good communication system where they understand dad and that, he's just happy to be with us, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we kind of figured it out at the beginning. It's like we have a master bedroom and there's a little nook in there and I can do some work and stuff, and they're out in the rest of it, or they're going, like today, they went to an amusement park because they got done school. So they're off doing that and I'm funding it. So it's good.
So we have 10 minutes left. Real quick. You wrote a book, right? Not the newest one, but you have your first book. How many books
Yeah.
have you written?
This will be the second one.
Okay, so tell me about the first book. What's the title of it? And what's the premise?
So the title of it's called Before You Begin. And the premise of it was basically, I saw a lot of people that would just jump into stuff. And even within coaching, to me, there's a big step before you get into anything, is understanding where you're going. And so inside of that, I actually included this little framework that I like to use with people. And it's called Observe, Focus, and Act. It's basically just like it's not a one size fit all. It's not a bullet. It's just basically saying, like, these are 3 pieces that you're going to need, and here's a good order for you to be able to figure out, like, hey, what's actually going on in my world? What do I want from there? And then what can I do? Right? It's not what should I do, but what can I do?
Okay.
So yeah,
is this book on Amazon?
it is on Amazon. Yes. Yep.
Okay, let's make it a bestseller, people. So go research the book, buy it. Now let's talk about the second book. Is it out yet, or is it coming?
It's in the process. It's with the editor. I'm going through and making it even better than it was. So, but
what's it called?
It's called Listen Simply. And
okay, so I'm assuming this book is a lot about what we've talked about on this show, right? Which is how you find the answer by listening, right?
Part of it is, and then part of it's just kind of, I wouldn't say putting a middle finger up to what all the advice out there is, but it's like, if it worked, why are we still failing? And to me, that's a really big piece. And I don't think it's that complicated, but I think there's a lot of hollowness out of what the advice people give you. So,
okay, let's unpack that, please.
Sure.
Give a preview to the book. What advice are we talking about?
So the advice that people talk about is like, hey, here's all the skills that you need. And I always joke, it's like, it's raising your arm to a 90-degree angle, it's focusing on the left eye, it's, all these like little things, or like, pausing before you speak. And I mean, there's just so many pieces of information out there. It's like, okay, that's a lot. But at the end of the day, why are people still miscommunicating? Like, there's not an executive out there. There's not even an entrepreneur. Like, there's not anybody out there that can't sit there and rattle off what they need to do to listen to somebody. And yet, bad relationships. People get frustrated. Like, the results are that something's broken in communication. And I think it's because the advice is crap.
Nice. I like that. When do you think the book will be out?
So I'm shooting for July. I had to wait for, everybody's busy, which is awesome, but I had to wait a little bit for the editor, so probably July.
Okay, that's cool. Do you have a website where people can find you?
I do, but the easiest is probably just on LinkedIn. That's where I'm spending a lot of my time, and love to have conversations with people and actually just interact that way. The website's kind of a billboard, so you're not going to get too much of a personal experience there.
What has your experience been like on LinkedIn? A lot of the guests I'm having on here are actually people I know from LinkedIn, and I always ask what the experience has been like, because everybody has a different interpretation of what LinkedIn is to them and how they use it. But I'm curious to hear from you. What has the experience been like?
It's been really, really positive. I'll say that. This is the first place where I think I've gotten some traction to be able to say, hey, people are looking for coaching. I will say that everybody's willing to sell you whatever you want. So it's kind of neat because you're kind of like, but it's overwhelming too, right? Everybody's kind of on there. Most of the part, just if they're commenting, they're speaking, they've got something to sell you. But I will say that that's a benefit because then you can look through and say, okay, well, this person's selling this, which is very similar to this, and you have a easier way to observe what's going on, and make a more educated decision pretty easily.
Yeah, I think everybody should have used to cite what everybody else is doing on LinkedIn. They're selling something. So when people comment on my post, I'm like, oh, my first question, unfortunately, is what are you selling?
Yeah.
Maybe not my long-time supporters and people I've met offline that we continue, but no, it's people when they say, great post, Doug, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, what are you selling? I mean, why are you on my comment?
Yeah.
I think I'm one of the rare content creators who call it for what it is. You're commenting and leaving a meaningful comment on my post because you're selling something. That blew up in my face, by the way. Did you see me write about that?
I don't know. See so much content. Yeah.
Leaving meaningful comments. And everybody, oh, but that's how I get my clients. Exactly. You leave meaningful comment, not for me, for you.
Yeah.
Stop leaving me a meaningful comment. Either compliment it or tell me a joke, but leaving these long comment in my comment, you're trying to hijack my post for you. But oh no, I'm a community member. I'm trying to support. No, you're not. Stop. That blew up. So many people got angry with me, and they were leaving long justifications about why they leave meaningful comments. So I'm glad you brought that up. You say everybody's selling something, and I'm like, yes. Yeah. So but in a way, some people are turned off by it, but like you and I, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, part of it is like, and this is what I'm saying, like everybody has a problem and solution they're trying to get to. Some people don't appropriately get there, right? They'll take advantage of people but there's a give and take in all of this stuff. And some people have a longer game than other people and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm not much of a fluffy guy. So I like to call it like it is.
No, you're not. I really enjoy your posts. They are really concise. Just no nonsense. I don't want to call it blue collar post. That sounds insulting, but it's very okay. This is the point. This is the question. What's your answer? Well, everybody's like telling us a wonderful story and trying to weave it in to the point, and then you kind of don't do that. You kind of just, this is the point. This is the clarifying question. Go. I rather enjoy that. Do you do that intentionally, or is that just the way you write?
It's probably habitual from where I grew up, where it was cold outside, so you had to say things quickly, get it out. But I think you learn like what an audience is looking for, and there's a lot of stuff I won't even bother to read just because it either starts with I or it's just so long. It's like I don't have time. Yeah. So
I'm guilty of that myself. Sometimes I write really long posts, but I try to justify it by saying, well, this needs to be said, but lately my posts have been getting shorter and shorter and a little bit meaner. Sorry, everybody, but I guess I'm just grew up these days.
Yeah. Well, and actually that was one of the things out of coaching certification is like one idea at a time. Yeah, I think a lot of the confusion that gives in people is like they're trying to put so much value or so much into a post. And it's like, I've only got one. I can't coin the term monotasker, but I can do, I'm very simple that way. I like to deal with one thing at a time, and it's all right.
Awesome.
So,
awesome. All right, we ran out of time, folks, and thank you for being on here, folks. I'm leaving all of Jacob's contact information in the description in the box below. Click on him, check him out, follow his content. I highly encourage that. So, Jacob, thanks for being on here. It was a great chat.
Yeah, it was awesome. Appreciate it.